And so if you just simplify, you're going to do a world of service to most people, including your staff. This is Keys to the Shop, episode 559, Myths Owners Believe, Part 2. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and thank you so much for being here. You could be watching on YouTube. Thank you. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your service is, you can subscribe to the show. You can click for updates on YouTube and all of that fun stuff. But I would encourage you to just take a little extra time, maybe a few seconds, to hit subscribe. It would mean the world because it helps the discoverability of the show. And honestly, it helps you too, because you get updated with new episodes as they come out. Also, many of you have enjoyed the show over the last 8.5 years. And to show that appreciation, you have given 5-star ratings and reviews on the Spotify channel. I don't know, can you do that on YouTube? But it's nice to make comments on the videos on YouTube too, to like the videos. But also on Apple Podcasts, if you could take a second to do that, to leave a 5-star rating or review, that would be awesome as well. Now, today's episode is a follow-up for a part 1 that we did on myths that owners believe. So I'm excited for this one. There's more that we have to talk about. One of the things that I do full time is I work with owners of coffee shops and their leadership teams in consulting and coaching. So, of course, that's always something that you can reach out about if you've had a while of thinking, it actually is time to get some help. I'm here to help. So you can reach out. But also something we're doing right now is called key holder coaching groups. We've done 4 seasons of 5 to 6 coffee shop owners meeting together for 6 months in a cohort of ownership community. This is like a peer-to-peer coaching group where there's encouragement, insights, member-focused times on rotation, a lot of great conversations that have moved the needle and shifted for the better the state that people find themselves in isolation as an owner. And really, like I said, brought that encouragement, but also helped the business as well with crucial decisions around staffing, around operations, quality control, expansion. And it's really fun to see the relationships form. And that really is a great community. So this is a paid mastermind coaching group for coffee shop owners. If you've been an owner for at least 2 years now of a brick and mortar coffee shop, I would encourage you to go to the link in the show notes and click to apply while there's still time. There's about maybe a week left at this point where you can put your application in. We plan on starting our next season of key holder coaching groups, the 5th season, in the late September, beginning of October of 2025. So I hope to see your application come in. And when it does, you and I are going to have a conversation and talk about if this is the right fit for you. So thanks, everybody. Now, our episode today, we're going to talk about our sponsors later on, but of course, our friends at Arto Brick, at Arto Brick on Instagram, and then the Pacific Barista Series, plant-based beverages your customers are going to love. Both of those folks we're going to talk more about in the later part of the episode. But first, we're going to start with the first myth. Okay. Before I get into that, I hope that you've listened to the first episode. If not, definitely listen to that one. It's not important that you get into it first, really, because these are all a little bit standalone. It's all right. But I would love for you to listen to that one as well. And some preamble here, the myth idea. A myth is something that we want to believe in. And it kind of gives us this impression that if I do this thing, then this other thing will happen. It's a little bit of magical thinking, mythology, right? It starts maybe with a little seed of truth, a little hope, mixed in with a lot of fooling ourselves. And then we build cases for it by anecdotal evidence. If it worked for this person, it'll work for me, was one of the myths that we had in the last episode. For example, we want to believe that because it might seem very convenient if that was true. So as we go through these myths, I'm not saying that in all cases, every single time, something hasn't worked out. What I am saying, though, is that we owe each of these categories of myths critical thinking and contextualization and just examination. I think a mindful and stepwise way of approaching business, especially when we impact so many relationships in the coffee shop. We are the final handoff of the baton to the customer for this incredible value chain of coffee that we are a part of. So there's a lot on the line. And that's not to put so much weight on our shoulders that we feel immobilized by it, but it's just to say the weight of this thing should inspire us to become strong enough to bear it and bear it with grace. And dispelling myths, I think, is a great way to help us do that. So here's the myth we're going to start with for part 2. We're going to start with the idea that if you build it, they will come. A little bit of Field of Dreams analogy there or callback, but the idea is you build a coffee shop, it's your world. And to you, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else, it's obvious. Everybody should be talking about this. Look how much passion and heart we put into this. I mean, it's beautiful. And the outside is the paint and the sign and everything is so beautiful. We paid so much for branding, for crying out loud. And so when you open the doors, you expect everybody to go like, finally, you're open. And all of a sudden, we're faced with the reality that everyone else's reality is different than ours. And that even though you had to, and most likely you had to, put as much energy as you did into this, that isn't a quid pro quo. It's not an equal exchange. Like, if I do this, then that will happen. It's not a bygone conclusion. But a lot of us are guilty of hanging up the shingle and hoping that the world beats a path to our door for a lot of different reasons. Again, clever branding, our social identity, the colors, and the product. Oh, we're the only ones who have that. We're going to talk about that in a second here. I'm going to get ahead of myself. But, we think this is what's going to draw people in. And what draws people in actually is two things. One, and I just realized how I was like, actually, what really it means either they have experienced it themselves or they have experienced you and you have kind of given them a taste of what this thing is. So the only way for them to actually get to you is, maybe they see you on the street, they give you a chance. Again, like I said in the beginning, I'm not saying it never works. That's interesting, let's go. That happens. Is it enough? No, you have to actually go out to get people to come in. This was a subject of a shift break a long time ago. Go out to get them in means when you start a coffee shop, you should be known in your community. You should get to know the community. People do business with those who they know, like, and trust. Does anyone know who you are? Are you just dropping or emerging into the scene with no preamble, no knowledge of what's important to your community? I mean, for most people, they don't even live in the places that their coffee shops are being opened. That's already a strike against them in terms of knowledge. And so how much business they get is going to be limited because the only trust and likability they have is based on trends. So a lot of the loyalty is a little bit shallow at that point. If you want something sticky and rooted, you need to be people who are rooted yourself. And that starts with relationships. It starts with getting out into the community and investing into people. You want people to invest into your coffee shop. Ask yourself the question, what are you doing or what have you done to be known as somebody who has first invested? Gary Vaynerchuk, I don't know if you probably know who he is. He has this, left, right hook. You give, and then ask. So you give. Basically, you're offering a lot of yourself and a lot of generosity. And in return, there's a law of reciprocity. Now, I'm not saying you go out there and do this in a manipulative way. I would never encourage you to go out there and say, hey, we're going to strategically go out there and sponsor and everything else. not because we believe in the little league team, not because we believe in, civil engagement and stuff, but because we're, wanting them to see us and we're going to pass out our business cards. And you can see through that stuff. People have, because of all of the marketing that people are subject to, we have a finely tuned sense, a radar for when people are being disingenuous. So really, I leave it in your hands and in your hearts to know what an authentic extension of yourself in altruism looks like in your business area. But it starts there. And you can go out there strategically and let people know that you're around. I want to serve you coffee. The whole purpose of your business, yes, you need to have business to stay in business. So it's not entirely self-serving to want profitability. You need to be profitable in order to continue to serve people things. It's just the way it works. And it's just basic capitalism, and maybe a lot of people can argue with the different derivations and warp of capitalism in this vein or that vein. I'm not here to argue about that. The fact is, if you own a business, you need to make money in order for that business to make good on the promises that it has to serve the people. And those people are your community, your personal family, your staff, and the people who came before you to supply the means and product by which you serve those people. That's the whole shebang right there, okay? So you can't just leave it to chance. It's a myth to say that if you can unlock a torrent of people to come your way when you're planning your first cafe, or even if you've gone in for a long time now and are maybe frustrated by the amount of people coming through. Time to go out, time to get involved, time to become known. And like I said, people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. That's a Carnegie principle, and it's, I believe, very true. So that's the myth. If you build it, they will come. So the next one I hinted at earlier is exclusivity. The myth is, if I'm the only one in town who has bubble waffles, this particular kind of matcha drink, I'm the only one who is a wholesale account of a nationally famous roasting brand, I am the only one in town who does, anything related to breakfast burritos. I don't know what your thing is. Eventually, that is going to run out. If your thing is gravy, the gravy train's going to run out. Everyone's going to be able to purchase and replicate what you do. This is just how it works. So you might say, we're the only ones who carry this brand of coffee, but that brand wants more people to carry their coffee. So if you're in a major city and you happen to be the first one in the Midwest to carry an East Coast brand of a wholesale coffee, you better believe that that business is not thinking, well, I think we're done expanding in Chicago. We're based out of New York City Roastery. We have a wholesale account in Chicago. One is good. Let's just keep it at one. You wouldn't do that. You would, if you were wholesaling coffee yourself, there's no way you would. So let's not be under any illusion that the industry is always going to expand where it can and meet demand, just as you would if you were in their shoes. And so exclusivity, as we've said before, is a bad strategy for differentiation. Differentiation takes time, and time that is spent getting to know the people and the service that is built on consistent quality of product and hospitality. The product itself is not important. Ooh, they import their coffee from Italy. Hardly anyone except for two old Italian guys care, and they are not making enough money to support your entire business. What matters is, does it taste good? Is the service good? Is it consistent? Is your place clean? Are the opening hours what they say they're going to be? There's all sorts of other things that lead to people being able to relax and count on you as their place. Their place. They want to put their identity into your business. But if all you're focused on, and I tend to find this is true, if I find people who are just really making big claims about exclusivity of products, we carry this particular kind of energy drink or whatever, they're probably underthinking the basics that actually make people want to stay with them longer. Because the next time you hear from them, they're going to say, yeah, somebody down the street started to make the same kind of drinks we did. And instead of saying, I guess it was kind of wrong for us to think about this as a, slam dunk in terms of differentiation. Yeah, we need to focus on some other stuff. They'll start getting up in arms and saying they're stealing our ideas. They're not stealing. They're just Google searching. Your idea wasn't that original to begin with. Honestly, originality itself and trying to chase down intellectual property in signature beverages and in product is foolish. It really is foolish. And that only works if you're like a corporation that invented a new kind of, jarred peanut butter and you have a proprietary, recipe or something. And that's for something other industry. But when you're talking about we made a particular kind of drink using 3 different sauces and syrups, eventually someone's going to land on that. There are only so many combinations of syrups and coffee and dairy and non-dairy and coffee that people can make before it starts to become redundant. Look at matcha right now, for example. Everybody and their mother has a strawberry matcha or a fruit matcha or a twist on a strawberry and fruit matcha. It's stewed fruit. It's fresh fruit. It's smoked fruit. Every cream top, menu in the country starts to kind of look the same. That's why these are called trends. Okay, they're not things that you want to base your business on particularly because everyone starts to do it and you enter into this new realm of business where you're the same as everybody else. And so you've really got to play the game. You got to chase it. Okay, so I would rather see you, instead of believing the myth of exclusivity, start to find what works for the right reasons on your bar that matches your values and identity, use it and make it excellent and start to build a base of customer loyalty around delivering exceptional value through the product, not because of the product, not on the product itself and its namesake or its heritage or something like that. But through it, you express a thing that is unstealable, if that's a word. It is something that only you can do simply because you're doing it. And nobody can take it from you. Okay. So exclusivity, that's the other myth we want to talk about here. Now, another myth that we fall for is that more on our menu is better. Let's just have lots of variety and have something for everybody. That's a huge myth. And here's the reason why. Hey everybody, this is Chris. I wanted to let you know we're going to be right back here with our episode, but I did want to talk to you about our sponsors today. Arto Brick, first one up today, is an amazing manufacturer of stone, concrete, tile, hard surfaces for residential and commercial properties based out of LA. I was just there. I got the whole tour of their facility. It is amazing. It's a family. It's now being run by the second generation, founded by Arto and now run by Armin and his brother Vod. This place is making dreams come true. If you can dream it, they can make it for you. And that's what I love about it is if you want to make an amazing coffee shop space and make it feel truly unique, this is the place to include in your build out for sourcing your material. So check them out on Instagram at Arto Brick. Reach out to Armin on the DMs there on their Instagram account and start a conversation with Arto Brick. Now, our other sponsor is our friends at the Pacific Barista Series. They are the originals. They are the people who basically started this whole movement with alternative beverages, the plant-based performance beverages. Now they have a complete lineup of different varieties of oats and almonds and so forth that is made specifically for professional baristas. It's the Barista Series. It stands up to the heat from steaming, produces great texture, keeps the balance focused on coffee in terms of the taste. So the sampling of that product is probably where you're going to be convinced. I'll try to convince you, but I think you should taste it for yourself. To do that, just email or actually go to their website, pacificfoodservice.com, and get samples and try it. And if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages, I think that you should be looking at the Barista Series from Pacific. Now, back to our episode on part 2 of the myths that owners believe. So So the reason more on the menu is not better is because you end up with this crowded menu, this crowded environment where it actually starts to become very difficult to choose what you want. And it reflects to the customer that not even you know what you want. And if you say, well, I just want what you want, that feels really insecure. It feels like the friend who has just never gotten an idea or never asserts any kind of a personality in the friend group, just like, well, I just want what you want. What do you guys want to do? Yeah, just let everybody else make the decisions. Listen, you need to curate your offerings for, yes, the sake of your customers. Okay. There is a part of this is like, yes, we do want to know what you want, but we're also going to take the step as a business to make selections that we celebrate. And then we're going to say no to other things. We have to throttle the torrent of options. If you didn't do that, you would have hundreds of syrups. And because of sunk cost syndrome, you would be convinced that because you spent money on it and you spent time on it and it was your idea and your pet project, that it is worthy, worthwhile, and valuable, when in fact it just isn't working. And you've got a ton of stock back there now of syrups that nobody ever asked for, nobody wants. It is, like brew-laid, sugar-free banana bonanza back there. And you think, well, maybe someday we're going to use that. And instead of using your creative energy to solve real people problems and relationship issues that are happening in your business, you're sitting there going, how can we get through that syrup? And it's just a waste of time because it's a waste of space. And we all know it. We all know it. We crowd our menus because our brains are crowded. We don't have a good reason for why we have what we have. We're just desperate a lot of times to make something that works, but we don't know why. What's the why behind it? And so we want simplicity in the menu. Break down your offerings into categories of customer need and then go from there. This week, I talked about a coffee fest. It was a talk we did about ways to immediately improve your coffee shop. Simplicity was one of those things. Your customers are broken down in just a few categories, okay? Listen, here's the menu categories that I think if you just had 2 or 3 options in each of these areas, it would work pretty well. You've got classic coffee menu. Yeah, we're talking about like cappuccinos, latte, drip coffee, Americano, that kind of thing. And then you've got the iced versions of lattes and hot lattes. You've got the iced and hot syrup and sauce-based ones like mochas and vanilla lattes, maybe like 1 or 2 sugar-free options. A lot of places just do 1 sugar-free option, right? Then you've got the tea and non-coffee menus. You've also got on there signature drinks that represent your brand and are always available. And then you've also got seasonal rotations, which are not always available, but are kind of a fun outlet of creativity that kind of goes in and out of season. Beyond that, you've got food that's sweet or savory, usually portable. And, I know there's way more variety that I could put out there, but just start with that framework and make it as simple as you can. The reason why, first of all, is because you don't want to confuse your customers. And second, you want to be able to deliver quality as consistently as you can with the tools that make the most sense, that don't take up too much space on the bar. It's going to be crowded. A crowded menu equals a crowded bar equals a crowded mind of the barista, which means inconsistency of delivery to the customer. And so if you just simplify, you're going to do a world of service to most people, including your staff. You don't have to have something for everybody. Like literally everybody, because then your cafe turns out to be just a clearinghouse for everybody's half-baked ideas. The industry itself, I've always said, doesn't exist. It is just your coffee shop. And a national or global trend may not play well in your area. It may not. And the idea that if it works for them, it'll work for me from our last episode, it applies here too. Whatever weird drink is out there on TikTok doesn't mean, oh, this is the key. If you're not making money, if you're not profitable right now, it's not because you lack a drink. It's because you lack expertise. It's because you lack consistency of service and quality. And it's because you lack execution. You might have the ideals and the recipes, but the execution is just not there. It's a training issue. It's a relationship issue. It's not a matcha issue. It's not whatever the thing is today, because you could be listening to this episode 10 years from now and not know what a, God forbid, Labubu or, the Dubai chocolate, or, I'm just naming these things that might even be so irrelevant, like the Beanie Babies of the coffee industry right now. And yeah, somebody might love that beverage, but to me, what I think about is what's the psychology behind why this becomes a trend? It has more to do with our insecurity than it does our excitement about the thing itself. So let's think about how we can take the menus we currently have, simplify them, and then instead of thinking about this as what we don't have, let's take the energy you would have spent, even the money you would have spent, and celebrate like heck all the things that you do still have. I also was talking about how online, these weird drinks and the novel stuff gets all the attention. Hardly ever do I see people posting in celebration of their Sumatran coffees, the blends, the vanilla lattes, the things that their customers love. If a customer takes the time to look at that and they say, you know what, I love this thing on their menu, but they don't seem to love it, which kind of feels weird. Like I'm always being preached to and never affirmed in my tastes by the place that I support with my money. So let's simplify. More on the menu is really not always better. You might add things that actually really work. I just request that we take a beat, take a moment, think about why is it we're actually going to put this on? And have we studied our people well enough to know that this is something that actually serves? Or is this just serving to allay some kind of a fear of missing out? Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is scaling your business equals success, expansion. You see people do it all the time. We're opening, like 4 stores a year. We have 5 stores. We have 10 stores. And we have no idea how they got to that point most of the time. The conversation that you're not involved with is the one about how we really need to pay our stakeholders back, or the private equity that is behind a lot of this rapid expansion. It makes us feel like we are behind when we just have one shop. We just have 1 or 2 shops, and look at all these brands. They're opening another one, and now they're opening a drive-through. And so we're just sitting there at our desk going like, oh man, we need to catch up. We need to get going because we need market share. And if we don't expand, we're going to be left in the dust. This comes down to that myth of saturation. So I guess it's another one we can add here, where yes, the physical location of the cafe, the building itself exists. There's lots of coffee bars out there. Is that a good sign or not? Well, I don't know. You don't know either. It doesn't mean that these places are making money. Starbucks is slated right now, I just read, they're going to close 90 stores somewhere. I mean, it's the idea of the people opening coffee bars have to be doing it for a good reason is ridiculous. Most people would be shocked to look at the finances behind some of their most beloved brands and know that it was just a Hail Mary. Maybe if we open this cafe over here, we're going to get out of debt and we'll actually be profitable. Meanwhile, you've got very successful, long-running coffee shops with 1 or 2 locations. They have a better life balance, like they have time for their family. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, that's not me, maybe not yet, but you're less likely to get there if you think, well, now I need 3 or 4 more stores. You're really sealing the deal for never getting there, honestly. All of this to say, the scaling of a business is something that I would encourage you to do only when you know you've tapped out all the potential of a particular location, and it's something that's going to be able to truly serve your community and your people. Some people open because they want their staff to have higher levels of pay and management and provide more opportunities. It makes financial sense. It's not going to set them back. And their market, I would say, not the quote unquote, the market, it's their market is really demanding it. Hold off as long as you can, I think. Make what you have as profitable as you can. Just make sure that you're not leaving something on the table there when you just open the first store and then you say, okay, well, Got that done. It feels like it's all right. Let's just 1 year later, let's open 2 more of these things because we found a deal that's too good to pass up. Again, it's a myth that scaling equals success. I think success looks like finding what your mission is, what your values are, what is necessary to fulfill those things. Now, you'd have to make a case that 10 stores is necessary to fulfill that vision. You might be right. You might be right. Your vision and your values and your mission and all that, it might be something that it needs that much. But in order for that to be true, you need to open one that works. And many people come to me and they say, we do want to expand, but we know, and to their credit, I'm so happy when they say this, we got to get the first one right. The people here need to be feeling good about this. We need to feel good about this. We need to be profitable and have systems and consistency. And, we don't want to just expand and then export something that doesn't work to a lot of locations, which is actually what you see all the time. But you don't know it. You know why? Because we don't know we're exporting something that doesn't work. The illusion is because we have fixed something in terms of like one aspect of workflow. So let's just say, for example, store one, it's scrappy. We're using recycled pallets. We got a used espresso machine. We're just sling and spro. The community is loving on us because we're the scrappy entrepreneurs. Now we're going to open the second store. We haven't really done any systems work. We haven't done anything to really advance and refine how we deal with relationships and management and leadership and that kind of stuff, or quality control. But what we did do is we got another loan. And in that loan, we have procured a brand new espresso machine. We have a cool facade. The menu is super modern, and it is in a cool part of town. And therefore, that little glow up on the surface gives the illusion that somehow we've advanced as a company when it's actually business as usual on the back end. And that's why you see a lot of these things crumble that look so amazing, because underneath it all, there hasn't really been any work done. Okay. So let's focus on the structural integrity. Let's focus on depth and rootedness, like that word, and get rid of this idea that scaling always means success. Let's find success where we are right now, and then respond with a level head and a stepwise way to the expansion and scaling that makes sense past that point. Okay. Now, the last one here for the myths is I can just hire in the coffee talent versus I will develop the talent, or I'll develop the knowledge. I can hire knowledge. We don't have to develop knowledge. This comes to us in the form of the owner who spent a lifetime in another field, and they say, I don't know anything about coffee, but I'm going to hire people who do, and they're going to run my business for me. I don't know if that's never worked or not. I mean, I get the sense in my experience, just my experience, it's problematic at best, because you might be really fortunate to find somebody who is mature, humble, very knowledgeable. They run it. And you might also be fortunate in the sense that you as the owner are completely fine with, spending a lot of money to keep them secure in their position, giving them what they need, clearly communicating your expectations, making them happy as a professional, and everything works out. That usually is a pipe dream. It only lasts so long. That person eventually is going to run out of steam. You can't just hinge all of your identity as a brand on importing talent and knowledge, because talent and knowledge varies. You need a unified way of doing things in your business that is just impossible to assemble through the variety of people that you have. So even if you hired people only with experience, their experience is only as good as it has made them familiar with the emotional and physical toll of service work. The actual knowledge of making an espresso or coffee and that kind of thing, the value of that knowledge is somewhat overestimated, because at a certain point, you need everybody to make coffee and serve guests and steam milk the exact same way. So if you have 12 staff, all with different levels of experience and opinions and YouTube channel subscriptions and so forth, and you think that that's enough, that's not enough, because that becomes this confusion. It becomes a cacophony of really good ideas, some of which need to be left on the table to say, we're going to select our way. That's where we come into developing knowledge. A knowledge building organization is what you need to be. Instead of outsourcing all of the talent and information and knowledge through people that you hire, or even para-cafe organizations like a certificate from a trade show or an organization like the SCA, all supplemental, fun, good. You could go to Barista Hustle. You could go to coffeebusiness.com, our friends that used to be Bellissimo Coffee Info Group in Portland. There's a lot of places to go. But the fact is, once you get back into your place, you need everybody to do the same thing because the customer relies upon it. You can't just buy in the knowledge and import the knowledge. You have to synthesize. You have to unify and then make consistent that knowledge. And when you do find a different way to do something that makes sense for everybody, then it gets distributed to everybody. Okay. So let's just say, for example, there's a new way that we want to do pour overs in the cafe. And it's because somebody who was knowledgeable is able to say, well, here's a new way to do it. What do you think? And then say, okay, we have to have the ability, we have to have the development system internally to be able to digest and synthesize and implement things that come in. So knowledge alone is not going to do anything. You as a company need to have the systems in place to be able to filter through and take the good and implement it, or take the interesting and table it, or take the bad and reject it. I mean, it's probably one of the three. But you can't just say, well, because the SCA said it, I believe it, and that settles it. Okay. You can't just say, because whatever luminary in coffee you're listening to said it. You've got to process that stuff. That's where development of knowledge for your organization comes into play. So the myth really is based on an assumption that once we have somebody with an impressive resume or a set of skills and knowledge, then we could just be hands off. I did not work for somebody a long time ago. It was a really difficult decision, actually. When I was first starting in consulting, almost a decade ago, and they just wanted me to do the coffee part. They're like, I don't want to be involved. I just want you to do the coffee. And I'm like, technically, could I do it? Yes. But I can predict that when leadership seeks first to distance themselves from the thing that they haven't even created yet, that down the line, you're not just going to get better. There's going to be a lot of problems. And you know what we don't need? More of that. Okay. So knowledge is fine. What's better is that we develop knowledge within our businesses, and that we not only develop the knowledge, we develop organizational identity that is able to synthesize, digest, implement the things that make sense for our business. It creates super stable businesses, and the customers really count on that. And frankly, we need consumers to buy coffee consistently for this whole thing to work. And hopefully you'll be the kind of business that takes these myths that we just talked about in this episode and in the last episode, part 1, and does something better than just believe them and operate your business according to them. Take the high road, be intentional, be thoughtful, take good steps in how you build, and you're going to build something really amazing. So thanks everybody for listening to this episode. That's the end. If you have questions, email chris@keystotheshop.com. If you're interested in coaching and consulting, that's the email to use. Also, don't forget keyholder coaching groups. Applications are still open, maybe for another week. So while you have time, we are going to be sorting through and choosing members for the group very soon. So go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com or click on the link in the show notes to put your application in while you have time for that. And as always, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you. And I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.